Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pass the Syrup, the agency podcast. It's all about the agent. It's not for the consumer. If you are a consumer right now, turn off. We don't want you listening. We don't want you watching. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about you. If you're an agent, this is for you. We're going to chew the fat. We're going to get into some great subjects. Today, I'm joined by three magnificent guests, as always. And none of them are my agency really close mate that I can have a dig at. So it's going to be quite a professional episode as well, like a sensible episode with three really good guests. So we've got Kesha Foss-Smith, Jen Jameson, and Liano Laporto Brown, three well-known agents from around the land, different specialisms, different agency type that they're a part of. So it should be really interesting. Ladies, how are you all?
Very well.
Good, thank you.
Isn't it awkward when you ask three people how they are at the same time on Zoom and no one knows what the etiquette is? Do we just all say something? Do we wait for somebody else to talk? I've done that now for the last few weeks. It's just to keep myself amused. I apologize. Delighted to have you all reappearing guests. Jen, so far we're 2 minutes in and you're already performing better than last time, tech-wise, just so people know, not you personally.
Yeah, no, it was a disaster last time with my update to my computer.
It happens. It happens. Whenever you need something off the computer, you know it's going to update. It happens to all of us. So, Jen, let's start with you. What are we talking about today? What would you like us to discuss?
Well, hi, everyone. I thought that it would be really useful to talk about the fact that we are definitely finding that purchasers, I'm up in Cumbria, are going in with some very cheeky offers. So it's a bit of a debate about whether it's, do we need to get our clients to be more realistic about their pricing, or are purchasers really just looking for a cheeky deal? We've got about 5 offers on the table this week, and we are working very hard for our clients to try and get those offers up. So there's definitely a recurring theme here in Cumbria, but I'm assuming that we're not on our own with this.
Kesha, Liana, you seeing any of this so far this year?
Do you know, I found in London, we found that a lot at the end of last year, but the beginning of this year has actually started slightly different for us. We've definitely been receiving offers and not asking price, but I think because there is a little bit more competition coming into London, particularly at the beginning of the year, the press has been really positive about, the mortgage rates, etc. And that has actually caused a bit more urgency for our buyers. And so because there's more competition, they aren't able to come in really low. So, as an agent, we're able to respond straight away saying, look, that's going to be rejected. And if you really like it, you're probably going to lose out. So it all comes down to, I think, my agents, that when there is positivity and when there is a bit more competition, their response to buyers immediately is very different to at the end of last year, we were begging people for an offer. And I think that kind of way comes across, to a buyer when they're then, talking about offers. So end of last year, we had a really low offer on a property. And one of my negotiators in Chiswick was like, oh, this is, we must take this, the client must take this. And I was a bit like, look, this is not the best client offer for the client. The client isn't in a rush at the moment. The best advice is not to tell them to take it. We can advise them, it's up to you. This offer may still be on the table at the beginning of the year, but realistically, I think we'll probably be able to get a bit more. We took it up over Christmas and relaunched it, and lo and behold, we've got 2 asking price offers, at the beginning of this year. So that just goes to show you how all of a sudden that's changed in London. And the response then from that negotiator on the next property is, you have to pay asking price or very close to. So I think, from I've never worked up in Cumbria, but from what I've sort of suspected, it takes a little bit longer maybe to move out of London. So maybe it's still heading your way. But all I'd say is, maybe maybe the negotiators need to cause a little bit more, maybe they can create a little bit more urgency. But, if that's the market and you've got 5 properties and they're all coming in low and nobody's coming above them, how long are the vendors willing to wait?
Yeah, I was also reading a really interesting article over the weekend about the fact that lots of people that moved out to more rural areas are now heading back to the cities. So I think that we're probably not in as strong a position as you guys in Manchester, London. We had the heat of the market, even probably until last year. We were definitely not feeling the same as you guys in London, we still had a lot of people drifting out to more rural areas. But I think people have realised that actually maybe the city is where they want to be, and we've not got such a strong market maybe at the moment.
Well, I think it's a matter of time though, Jen. We've in a much better place than we expected to be from the end of last year. Q1 this year was looking bleak, and now we've had people gazumping. We've had 150 grand over asking price on one of our freehold houses. It's just suddenly changed, and we're not in a buoyant market yet, but we're in a much better place than we expected to be. When the negotiators come with, the lower offers, I always say just have those conversations, and it depends on bringing that offer up, and just really try and break it down into figures. And like a lot of the time they're paying more on rent than they were paying in a mortgage, and the difference on the mortgage is just so small, but just because it's out of principle that £10,000, that £15,000 to push them up to agree a sale and to buy their home. So it's so psychological. So I just tell my negotiators to have those conversations and try and make the buyers see how little and what a little difference that will make to increasing their offer by 10 or 15,000 pounds. But it's a tough conversation, and some negotiators are quite daunted in having those strong conversations. And with our vendors have become more realistic, but that's going to change very soon. It's suddenly we're going to be having those conversations where they want £100,000 more than the asking price.
Yeah, we haven't got there yet in Cumbria. Our vendors are still thinking that they're in a strong position. So we are. I definitely think we probably do lag slightly behind where the London market is. Cumbria also has its own little microclimate. I mean, we never really feel the peaks and troughs. It's fairly steady because there's a lot of people that want to buy in the Lake District. But I do feel that there's a disparity at the moment, in particular, between what is being asked for and what is being offered.
I think it's important so people talk about a national housing market. I mean, I'm on Chris Watkins' show every 6 weeks and talk about the national housing market. Obviously, it's farcical. There's no such thing as a national housing market. You can't use the data from a national picture. Right now, we've got 2 agents, well, including myself, 3 agents from London and 1 from Cumbria, who are experiencing wildly different circumstances. And that's been the case for the 20 years that I've been an agent, no matter where you are.
There are microclimates in London.
Well, absolutely.
So it's impossible.
So the national housing picture is only, I think, good for a little bit of context. It provides you a little bit of where we've been in the past, and it gives you a little bit about what the national sentiment piece will be, because the national data will be picked up by the press, and the press will drive, the perceptions around what's going on in the market. Interestingly, so from a London perspective, not everyone, we've got 2 very experienced, high quality London agents on the podcast and me. London has been a funny old place the last 6 or 7 years. If you go back as far as the Brexit announcement, London became very passive, I think is the word we've used in our business to describe it. Transaction levels down, activity levels down, urgency levels down. First time buyer market sort of reducing and behaving in a very different way, taxation on landlords and coming up, and so apartments being wildly affected by less landlords thinking about investing in apartments in London. And then of course you've got all this craziness around service charges. Sorry, I just got to reference something yesterday I heard. We work in a town called Brentford. One of the postcodes we work in, it's in West London, sort of Middlesex area, not a high value location. 75% of that market is made up of apartments, 25% is houses. One of the blocks in that area that's about 15 years old is currently charging £1,000 a month service charge. What's going on? This is insane. We've worked at that area for years and years and years, where our original business was built. So that these little niggly things that present that aren't maybe not going to be portrayed at a national level. So London's been a funny old place, and I mean, from a national picture, I've got Watkins data here. Let me throw something at you. If you look at the average of 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, gross sales are up 5%. first month of this year versus those years on average. But net sales are up nearly 15%. So net sales being new sales agreed minus abortives, which is, I mean, that's a fantastic stat. 14% uplift. I think any business would be very, very pleased with that. I think the issue you're going to have, Jen, this year, and London is maybe starting to catch up on, you know, traditionally London comes first, ripples out. You know, we all saw it, Brexit. London was the ghost town following Brexit and into COVID. As COVID arrived, everyone moved outwards and trying to work out what does the land look like. People are starting to come back. I think the issue we've got is last year. So this is not a dig at agency. I'm an estate agent. I've got a team of estate agents who work with me. Post-COVID, the market sort of dictated its own terms. It was so active, we became a very reactive industry that we just we put the gum shield in and we got ready for it. And we're in a fight, and it's everyone's got to do what they got to do. Unless you're a new business starting out, you probably didn't behave in a massively proactive manner. You were firefighting a lot of the time. Last year, I think businesses needed to pivot and get back to proactivity and working appropriately. But what businesses had on their side is the media was doing so much of the hard work in communicating with your client base. This is the market, this is the economy, this is interest rates. So they were doing so much of that feedback piece, which truth is agents take for granted. This year, it is back with a bang. If you want to be a great agent this year, you've got to get so comfortable, I think personally, with having the really tough conversations. That's the difference between a high quality experienced agent and maybe those that aren't yet.
Yeah.
Tough love. They don't want to hear it, but that's what they need to.
Yeah.
So I think loads of people will be experiencing the same issue that you're talking about, Jen. In London, Kesha, Liana, and me, we're quite happy with where we are right now. You know,
right now, yeah.
Yeah.
Back end of last year, though, you know, I was withdrawing properties from the market because if a client wasn't going to take my advice when it was due, then I was like, well, I'm wasting my money and you're wasting your time because there is no point. These are the facts. You've told me you want to move. This is what you need to do in order to move. If you're not going to listen to me, that's fine. There's an agent up the road who will do it. You know, that's and we had to be quite fierce about having those conversations. And I think we ended up doing some seriously drastic price reductions back end of last year, which has allowed us to go into this year in a very different place, you know, coupled with a bit of the market. But, you know, Jen, maybe you're just heading for that. And it's like, you know, have the honest conversation with the clients and say, if you want to move, this is what you got to do to get there. I'm working as much as I can on these buys, but this is where we're going to get to. So either take it or withdraw. You know, we look at other options. Don't be afraid.
Well, since we've been on this podcast, I've had a message from one of the sales negotiators to say that she has just managed to agree a sale on one of those very difficult properties just got through. So the girls are doing a fantastic job of meeting the demands of buyers and the sellers. So it is tough. It is tough. It's meeting everyone's expectations.
Isn't it? It's having those difficult conversations, but there's so much data out there. I don't know whether you use it, but we've got 6 whiteboards all around us, and we just everything we do, we put on those whiteboards. So we know how many leads we've had in the last week. We know how many inquiries we've had on all the properties. We know and on those conversations with the sellers, we just bring up those stats so that it's part of that conversation. And I suppose it's just powering yourself with as much data as you can to have those conversations in the best possible way you can.
Also, something that Kesha mentioned early on. So everyone's speaking my love language. Like this is wonderful. We've got whiteboards up. We're creating urgency. Like it's proper agency. This is what agency was built on. This stuff. We've become so obsessed with the future in tech and AI that we think we can automate away the really difficult stuff that helps you stand out and do a great job for your client. And one of my pet hates, which you three have all completely quashed, is that I think a lot of agents forget that they work for the client, and there's a lot of negotiation on behalf of the buyer, which is absolutely horrendous. All three of you have referenced getting the best for your client, and sometimes that means the best thing is not to accept this offer, not to move forward. I think, in fact, Kesha, maybe a question for you: how did your team take your position on giving client feedback and removing properties from the market? Because for a lot of agents possibly watching, listening, they might say, oh, that would go against everything I believe in, taking something off the market.
Yeah, look, I think I think that it was a real mind shift for them because, you know, we're an instruction-based business, right? And if you've got instructions, something's going to follow. But there's also a point where it comes where you can't, if a client's not going to take, we are here to advise our clients as well. We are here to work for them, but we're also here to advise them. And if you've got someone screaming down the neck saying you're not selling, but they're not taking your advice, then there's no point in you being there. You know, we're not here to be door openers. We're here to advise you. We have given a marketing strategy from start to finish. And if you're not going to take that marketing strategy, go find an agent that's willing to take your own, you know, marketing strategy, because every one of our vendors, you know how it is. Every one of our vendors is the best estate agent and they've never sold a house. And it's like, well, you know, so it is a very difficult conversation. It was a big mind shift, but equally it allowed us to, you know what it did is it made my managers a lot less worried about losing the instruction, to then be able to have a more honest conversation because they weren't worried about losing the instruction. And then actually, when you're having a more honest conversation, the vendor's like, okay, because you know how it is, price reductions are very difficult for agents. You know, it's not a natural thing. They go, oh, I thought I promised you this and it's not working, and I can't get it, and I'm too afraid to tell you that it's not worth it, you know, because they might turn around and say, well, you told me it's worth it. I mean, it's price reductions are another conversation, man.
They are such a valuable conversation that, you know, just the more tough love you can offer, the more your client's going to cuddle you when the completion comes through.
100%.
But I don't know about you, but last year, even a price reduction wasn't working. We'd get the price, we'd have the really tough conversation. We'd get the price reduction where you're thinking, surely this is going to sell. And
then
still,
it didn't. Yeah.
10% below the asking price, and you're just tearing your hair out thinking, no, so yeah, it has been a really challenging market, and it's needed some really tough conversation. But I think I'll take it a step further. Now, if it's really overpriced, I don't even take it on. I'll step back and go in as a second agent, and I'll say, look, please just, you know, if you really want that price, test it with the other agency. I'm here all the way, and I'll speak to you in 6 weeks.
Yeah, don't burn your bridges. Absolutely. Yeah.
I thought you were going to give us a song there. I thought you were just going to sort of sing it. I like it.
Do you know what? I've tried to put that on silent, but otherwise I go on silent. So I'm actually having some tech issues.
Oh, wow. Well, Jen, this should be a relief.
I'm just delighted I've handed the baton over.
So just to wrap up this subject, because I think it's a really powerful subject, what I wanted to say a moment ago, and I got distracted, Kesha, is you talked about, in essence, you were talking about a mindset shift for your agents. Do you know the scenario where you've just taken an offer on a property and it's a reasonable offer, but the buyer is not, you know, they're not 100%. You're going to have to work, you're going to make sure they're bedded into this deal. You're going to have to really nourish this. And then out of the blue, the next day, someone who viewed it on the weekend also makes an offer. And what you see is this mindset shift in your negotiator, your salesperson. They were tentative with offer one. Now they got two offers. They're the best negotiator on the planet. They're calling their shots. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. You're going to do this. They are, because there's natural confidence in, there's a safety net. And we've all seen it. What I think, Jen, if I could give any advice to your team, it's to reaffirm to them that they know their That's it. You know, you are, I mean, I tell my guys reasonably regularly, they're the real deal. When it comes to negotiation, our clients pay considerably more to use us because we get the best price. We get the best price because of how we handle the situation. Anybody can do a viewing. That is not what you're paid to do. I can let my 7-year-old do the viewings for us, and she can hand over to us when it's time to extract the offer, because that's when we do our job. Yeah, the marketing strategy, absolutely, get the right people in, maximize the exposure, get as much competition going as possible. But the negotiation piece and the sales progression piece are true value. If your guys know, they know. And if the market dictates this is what the market dictates, get the best price and get it agreed. When the market's buoyant, everyone's, I don't know, horrendous reference, the Wolf of Wall Street. But when it's tough, you know, that old cliche, my business went under. Why did it go? Because of the market. My business is flying. Why is it flying? Because I'm amazing. Well, you know, is it the market or is it you? You know, so, you know, yeah, it's going to be a challenging year. Love that. tough years make great agents. It's going to be good. It's going to be tough. The best agents are going to fly. But there's a lag, the consumer's going to have to catch up, and you just have to educate them every 48 hours. Another news piece, another news piece, another news piece. This is what we're seeing. This is the data. This is what other properties are doing. This is what came on the market yesterday that makes yours look more expensive. All those conversations eventually, sounds horrible. This is why I told the consumer to turn off. Eventually you break them down and they understand that you are correct. It just, some people are stubborn because they're the best agents in the land, selling one house every 13 years. Great subject, Jen. That you've kicked us off so well. Kesha, we're going to fly straight into yours because we've got 31 minutes until Liana is hard leaving us. And that was such a good subject. Kesha, over to you.
I think every subject's a good subject in estate agency, to be honest. And I think this is just, obviously this was on the top of the estate agency today, and it was, I don't often read a lot of things on there, but I was very intrigued by this, where yesterday, obviously, Labour announced their plans to add a regulation into the Leasehold and Freeholders, Act about estate agents needing at least one A-level and agency owners to have a degree. I just wanted to know what everyone else thought of that.
Ladies, over to you.
Interesting. Okay. I'll start on this. I'll throw myself in there. So I have A-levels and I have a degree. However, I don't agree with what Labour are saying. I think there are a huge number of people that potentially leave school at 16 with not even a GCSE who go on to be absolutely fantastic business owners, and incredibly successful, and I think that will be stifling a lot of potential fantastic estate agents. I don't think that having a degree or an A-level necessarily qualifies you to be able to do a really good job of selling houses. I understand why they're saying there's maybe a requirement for there to be a template around owning a business and being able to regulate that potentially, but I think there's maybe better ways of doing that. So I don't agree with what they're saying there for many reasons.
Good for you, Jen.
Yeah, that's
out there.
That's it. It's out there.
That's it.
Yeah.
You've said it now. You can't take it back.
No, I can't.
You get cancelled off the back of this. It's not on me. Liana, what do you think?
I was having tech issues, so I am going to jump in there because I kind of know what the topic was and say that as a resident of Property Mark, I think that agents should be qualified. I don't think there should be a standard A-level or what whatever the suggestion is. But I've done the level 3 and I've done half the level 4. My memory is now starting to fail me, so I'm really struggling with the end of level 4, but I'm willing to get to it. You get to a certain age, and I don't know about you, but I read a page and I forget what it said.
Yeah.
I absolutely, just reading through the material in a level 3, we should all know that. We should all be able to sit a multiple choice exam, and we should all have a license to practice. I'm a firm believer in that, but I don't think it should be kind of picked from the sky and you have to have an A-level, because that has nothing. It's not relevant to our business, it's not relevant to our industry, and it doesn't give us the knowledge we need to go out there and be good at what we do and to advise our customers. When you're sitting down on evaluation, you need to know your stuff. You need to know what you're telling them. You need to know legislation. You need to know everything about what you're gonna, what you're bringing to that to the conversation and what you need to sell their house. So yeah, that's I think, yes, we need to be qualified, but not in the way that they've suggested.
Kesha, you asked the question. What do you actually think about it?
Oh, I 100% agree with both. I don't have A-levels or a degree. I mean, I studied in South Africa and I did finish matric, but I don't think that actually is the same as A-levels. because we do 7 and I think you only do like 3 here.
Mhm.
So I don't have either. And I honestly believe you just need to be personable to be an estate agent. To be a good salesperson, you need to be personable and want to deal with people. But having done level 3 and level 4, I 100% agree that having that information and having all of that, to hand when I'm speaking to a client makes me more credible, and makes them more comfortable that they are putting their biggest asset in my hands. And I've done so many training sessions with my negotiators and with my managers with information from level 3 and level 4. We're trying to push them to do it, by the way. But I mean, it's amazing how when you go through some of that data, they sit there going, I didn't know that. And I'm like, how are you selling houses if you don't know that? So yes, I do think a qualification, we should be pushing people to have qualification, because if I'm going to go buy through someone and I'm going to spend a lot of money buying an asset, I want to be able to ask the questions that I need to ask. I want to know about that house before I start spending loads of money, that they can then obviously respond to that in a certain way, because they know, they can see when damp comes through, they know where it's coming through, they know why it's coming through. Do you know how many times I've walked into a house and the estate agent, there's a water leak, obviously from either flashings or with a chimney or something, and they go, oh yeah, it's rising damp, and I'm like, are you joking? We're on the first floor, like that's not rising damp. What does it come up 6 meters from the ground, like? So I definitely think a qualification is important. But yeah, A levels and a degree, I mean, come on, seriously, how many people have actually got degrees that actually end up? My husband has a degree in marketing and he's never used it in his life before.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, getting a degree is about drinking beer for 4 years.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's why my friends who went to university, it was just a party. I didn't go to university. I dropped out of A levels after year 1, much to my parents' frustrations. But I think my story is a good example of what happens a lot in this country. You do the A levels your parents want you to do. I was doing maths, history, economics, and IT. And after a year, I was like, this is not what being 17 is all about. Everyone else is having fun and I'm like a geek. This is not me. I'm meant to be playing sports. Look at me. I'm 6'1" and big. So I dropped out of that. So I don't have an A level. I don't have a degree. So if this had been in place 20 years ago, girls, you would have never met each other, because I wouldn't be an agency. This podcast wouldn't have happened. And the 13 people that end up listening to this podcast wouldn't have heard it. And that is the impact that this proposal could have. On the qualification, so Kesha, one of the things we did in our old business is everyone who got level 3 got a pay rise.
Nice.
And that encouraged everyone to do it. Not a huge pay rise, but enough for them to say, well, that's worthwhile. To be a manager in our business, you had to have level 3 as a minimum. I mean, it is a long time since I've done that. We had a few of the guys do level 4. I always think, back to mindset, I think it's a mindset shift in confidence and how to deal with difficult situations once you've got the qualification. Actually, practical application, I think you learn so much more on the job. I think you're learning from great people around you and how to deal with the issues that come at you on a daily basis. Still 20 years in, occasionally something will present itself and it will be new to me. And we've got to learn on the hoof. But I like the idea of a qualification for confidence and as a minimum standard. My issue really with qualification for the industry is what are we trying to improve standards, or are we trying to prove the issues with sort of the immoral behavior around agency? Because my view on this policy is that it's voter clickbait. The general public have a perception around us and what we do and who we are and how we behave. So if I want to get into government, I'm going to say something that's going to fix a state agency. I'm going to make them all do A levels, and that will make them better human beings. But without sounding really horrendous, accountants steal people's money. Police murder people, doctors do horrible things. It doesn't matter how the qualification doesn't stop the immoral behavior. So that's, I think, what the consumer is more concerned by. If we're talking about improving the standards and understanding of what we do, Toby, who works at Bath Reside, put forward a really great idea. He's a member of Property Mark, very good on social media, very outspoken in his belief that we should be licensed and what we should do. His idea was that rather than a qualification, it's ongoing education, and that's how you maintain being licensed. That you've got to have a certain number of hours on a quarterly or annual basis to confirm that you're keeping up to date with what's going on in the world. I thought that's a really good idea, because up until I heard him say that, I wasn't really that into the qualification piece. I know lots of agents that are qualified that do things that they probably shouldn't, unfortunately. And some of my guys are not qualified that wouldn't dream of doing some of that stuff. So doesn't always work out. But yeah, I think voter clickbait for me. I can't see many getting behind the idea of an A-level to work in agency. And certainly, I think, I don't know, sweeping statement, entrepreneurial skill set is not learned by getting a degree, is it? You know, business ownership normally takes different paths. So, wow, 2 good subjects. And we've got about 15 minutes left, Liana, no pressure.
And
But
I'm
we're looking
still
for a
here.
big
I'm
finish.
still here.
Jen hasn't left us. Don't know, you've
it.
jinxed that. You're definitely going to turn off in about 30 seconds.
I think it takes
Liana,
us
over to you.
really nice. Am I on mute?
No, you're good. You're good.
I think it takes us really nicely onto my subject, because part of the qualification and part of the level 3 and level 4 is, firstly, I think it's great because it offers a pathway for young people coming out of uni considering what to do with their life. So there is this qualification, there's this like our industry becomes a career. But part of it is like now it's joining the 2 disciplines, so sales and letting. So what I wanted to have a chat about is the difference between sales agents and lettings agents, and if you can do both. So because of the self-employed model, and within my business, because we're a smaller business, we sometimes ask negotiators to do lettings or sales. But as a pure salesperson, and I've always done sales, the last 6 months to 8 months, I've been doing a lot of lettings because it's part of my business. And it's chalk and cheese. It's different. It's a different animal. It's a different beast. So the question I'm putting out there is, can you do both? The qualification that Propertymark's going towards, and by the way, you need to top up your CPD with Propertymark, is multidiscipline. So you're going to be learning sales and lettings so that you can practice and you do both. But can we really? Are we the same person? Is a salesperson and a lettings person the same? Do we share the same skills? That's my question.
Ladies, as always, over to you.
Oh, am I going to have to go first again?
Go on, Jen. You're on fire today.
Well, we actually do both. So we have lettings and we have sales. And just interestingly, listening to you there, Liana, I was thinking that probably my answer would be, I think for one person to be doing both, that's tricky. We have people very particularly in our business who are on the sales side and are much more sales focused and are driven in a slightly different way. And then we have our lettings team who I watch and think they're just amazing because they are dealing with a lot of issues every day and it is constant, and the legislation is very different, and we had terrible storms here last week, and that the fallout from that for the lettings team was massive. They had so much work to do, so everything that they had planned to do was just completely blown out the window, no pun intended. And yeah, their week is just, you know, it depends what is in front of them, whereas with sales it's very much well, it's just not like that. You know, you go in and you know what you're dealing with. Yes, you might have new offers on the table, but it's much more focused. So I think someone that was doing lettings and sales, it is a big job, and I see the benefit of it being split.
So do you have anyone in your business that does both sales and lettings? Is both a joint sales and lettings negotiator?
We've got one girl at the moment because we're slightly short-staffed who's going between the 2, but she is really looking forward to coming back to sales. So that tells me that's where her heart is, and she's never made any secret of that. She enjoys doing the lettings, but she is a sales girl. and we're actively trying to find someone to fill that position. There isn't as many, we're finding up here anyway, people that deal so much on the rental side, the letting side. It's much easier for us to find sales negotiators to do the sale of property rather than people that specialize more on the letting side. So no is the answer. Longer term, we would always have it split.
So I think it's really interesting because I spend my life working really closely with my lettings area director. We have been working together since we both started in property in 2010, and we've kind of grown up in our career. Now we work very closely together in John Wood, and I spend my life making sure that we are bringing lettings and sales together because there has historically been such a separation. And when I was a manager going to value properties, I really get frustrated when my lettings manager would be like, no, you can't value that for lettings. It's my job. And I'm like, I can just give them a price. Like, it's the best thing for our client. What does our client want? Like, can you just give me a price and I can just give them a whole round? And then when it comes to the detail, you can come in because, you know, apparently I don't know the detail, although I really watch very closely what my lettings counterpart do. And I've got a lot of my friends who've obviously left a state agency and started their own self-employment model. And it's really interesting to see how, if they've been very successful lettings managers, how they have set up their businesses a lot faster because they've created a lettings portfolio that's got an ongoing income, and then they've gone to sales. But they are still much more lettings focused because that's what they are good at. And those in sales who've really battled to start, you know, because they don't know much about lettings, and therefore have taken a lot longer to start, and they are still, even though they've now gotten a bit better, they are still sales focused because that's just kind of where they come from. I believe that you can do it both. I don't believe that you can do it long term sustainably on your own as both, because there is a lot of work involved in both of them, and I feel like if you spin too many plates you'll end up dropping some. But I do feel like both everyone should be knowledgeable in all parts of the business model, because we can give a 360 agency. We talk about 360 agency all the time. We can give a 360 agency to a client, because there's nothing worse for a client going, oh, you can't speak to me about lettings, you have to speak to them. And oh, you can't speak to me about sales, you need to speak to them. It's just, we need to do what's best for the client. And if you've got a good understanding of all round, you should be able to help them. But I do feel like as a business, as your business grows, you'll probably have to find a way of making sure that they're not spinning too many plates, is what I can see from the outside. But again, I haven't done both of them full time, so you're probably going to be the expert at that.
And so you found it tough, Liana, the last few months doing both?
Well, no, it's learning a lot more about lettings, but I think that we now have a head of lettings, and she's taken over a lot of the everyday. But as a salesperson, having had to step in and do a majority of the lettings building and just everything that goes in and around lettings, it's just a different beast. It's just I did the same. I did loads of valuations when I was in the corporates with my lettings counterparts, and it was always very separate. But I think moving forward with how the self-employed model is set up, there's going to be a lot of agents that are going to have to do both. The smaller agents that are coming, it's not all of the corporates. The corporates will always have separate departments, and there'll always be specialists in both fields. But I think we'll see a breed of agents that is coming in the future that will need to know both disciplines and need to be good at both disciplines. And I'm wondering if they're that like golden nugget, that person that can do both, because I'm certainly not that yet. It's a challenge.
In our old business, we opened in 2008, disastrous time, and we very quickly became a letting specialist, and we completely dropped sales because the sales market wasn't there. So we spent 7 years building a lettings business, reasonable size portfolio. Then we introduced sales, and we went through different permutations, different ways of working. The final sort of iteration of how we worked before we exited the business a couple of years ago, was we split the roles, which had always been split, but we brought the disciplines together. So what we had is, so we had a marketing department, we had a sort of pre-sales, post-sales administrative team. We had property management, which was very specifically just for management, inspections, maintenance. And then we had an associate team and a broker team. And the associates and brokers would work both sales and lettings. In fact, all departments worked across sales and lettings. So the admin team understood the sales and the lettings process from front to back. Marketing is marketing, and there were different platforms and different offerings for both disciplines, but marketing is marketing. Property management very specifically for lettings property management portfolio. But then the associates, they were the telecoms team, they were call outs, they were emails, they were almost like a sort of horrendous name for it, but a call center. They were the communication piece. The brokers would do all the appointments and the negotiation, and they would both work in sales and lettings. The reason we did that is we went from a multi-branch setup to a single branch setup. We brought 4 branches together into super crazy, insane branch. Then COVID hit. When we came back, we gradually introduced people back in, like most businesses did. But to work on efficiencies, when we brought 2 people back at a time, we said, one of you stay in the office and be on the phones all day, and the other one do all the appointments. That's how we get maximum efficiency out of this setup. It worked so well that we completely restructured the business and brought back half the team who were just going to man the phones, had to deal with inbound, deal with prospecting, deal with everything that was about communication, and then the brokers who were a little bit more lean towards the negotiation skill set. Because we had traditionally been a lettings business, it required us to get some of the sales guys up to speed on lettings, likewise some of the lettings guys up to speed on sales. But what happened inevitably was traditionally, let's say our best lettings broker, they ended up doing the vast majority of the lettings appointments. Our best sales traditionally ended up with sales. And so they would very rarely, top sales broker would very rarely do that many lettings viewings. What I would say is, though, there was a hybrid that sat in the middle that did about 60-40 and absolutely capable of doing it. I think the truth is, having worked across both a lot, I think those that have worked in lettings are best set up for the transition. Those that have worked in sales, the transition is much more difficult to lettings. There's a lot to learn. It's a different breed. There are some things that I think agents take for granted, that the client type that they'll be dealing with in sales is going to be the same and have the same demands and same aspirations as when they go over to lettings. And actually, what's driving a landlord's decision is very, very different, usually, not always, to what's driving a vendor's decision. So I think there is learning, but I do believe that people that are good in the gig that they're doing will find a way to transition and make it work. Very specifically regarding the self-employed model, which I've noticed, the guys that really nail it, I think, spend the first 6 months building a lettings business.
Yeah.
They get their drip-fed income, which is crucial. Yeah. Because it means they can actually get 8 hours sleep at night because they're not worrying about the next sales deal. And so they maybe cover their overheads with a very small lettings portfolio, and then they work on their sales business. That's the success I've seen. Actually, I'm not talking about the Fine and Country network, which is a big self-employed operator. I'm talking sort of other brands and other people that I interact with, and friends and people that used to work as part of our business and gone and set up for themselves. Where I see some potential issues is the maintenance and management of the portfolio. When that becomes, as Jen's experience, you have storms or you have an issue that can be a real drag on your time, then it becomes very difficult, because that's reactive work that has to be addressed. How do I work on my proactive pipeline build? And that, I think, in the future could be an issue for some people, because it's just very, very difficult to find enough time. Then you need to scale and maybe bring someone in to be part of the team and look after your admin side of the business. But for a lot of self-employed, that's the opposite of what they want to be doing. So there are some interesting conversations, and I think businesses will start to pivot in the next couple of years as they realize the importance of lettings and maybe outsource some stuff. But I think, yes, someone who's good at one can be very good at the other. It will just take a bit of time.
Yeah.
Well, I talked for too long there. I waffled on. I meant to ask the questions, not talk. Okay, 3 great subjects. Well, I spoke for so long, I managed to get virtual silence out of 3 of you. That is, wow. It's like I've got 3 additional wives on the call with me today. Sorry, girls. Right, 3 great subjects. Does anyone want to plug anything?
Well, I think I'll jump in there. We have the Women in Estate conference coming up on the 7th of March. if you haven't bought a ticket, we have the early bird tickets still available till the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. It's just, we did the conference last year and it just exceeded all expectations. It's not your regular industry conference, but you take a lot to implement in your life, in your business. We have, from mental health, physical health, just inspirational speakers. It's a brilliant day out, and there's a couple of surprises too. So yeah, it would be great if you could support us. We're a non-profit. The committee is completely non-profit. It's just to give women, senior women and women in our industry better opportunities. So yeah, it's a brilliant conference. So book your tickets now if you haven't already.
And
Thanks,
in case anyone's been living on the moon for the last year, just women in the state agency, just 30-second elevator pitch. What is it? How do people get involved beyond the conference?
It's started as a Facebook group. It's over 3,000 women that form part of a community, and it's just about empowering and supporting each other within our industry. We started off with a very, very small group, and it has absolutely mushroomed. We have a committee, we've got a conference, we've got a webinar, and it's a great place to just be part of, just come in and share thoughts, ideas, and get support if and when needed.
Now, I wasn't going to say this, but I feel obliged, Juliana. Last week, we had Alice Bullard from Nested on.
Yeah.
And she's a member of that other group, and she was really bad-mouthing you guys.
No.
No, there are. Yeah, I think you guys are basically supporting each other and have very, very similar goals. And when I tried to bait her into starting a fight with you guys, she wouldn't take the bait.
Yeah. We have women in residential property. They're very different. We're estate agents, letting agents, and they tend to be surveyors. They're different disciplines. So we're two groups, and in fact, they are also hosting a panel. Nicola Bruman, and there's Ellie Rees. There's a few others on their panel. So they'll have a panel in our conference. And
if that isn't a sign that women are so much more evolved than men, nothing is. And there's another women's group, and you've got them on the stage. If it was men, we'd be arranging a fight. There's another group.
Just for men too. The conference is for men. Men have always been part of the conversation. We've got two men on the committee, Ian McKenzie and Simon Brown. It's really important that men are part of this conversation, because it doesn't happen without men's support.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get my full support, as always. Gets a lot of mentions on the podcast. Ladies, it's been magnificent. 3 great subjects, 3 great guests, very, very minor tech issues. Jen, you've made it all the way through.
No, I'm absolutely delighted. I've actually made it to the end of this podcast.
You and me both, hun. Seriously, you and me both. I was really, that close. Should we bring her back or not? Excellent contributions, really great subject matter. Thank you so much. I know that agents that have watched this or listened to this will find value in this conversation, because it's a lonely place, agency, sometimes. And the conversations we've had are exactly the conversation a lot of people want to have, but maybe they don't want to do it at the dinner table with their spouse, because, if you're not in agency, it's pretty boring stuff. So thanks, ladies. We're going to hand over to Chris for his weekly Watkins Whimsy. See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Yesterday's exchanges won't get you today's listings.